What's up, guys? Welcome to Slasher Home Video. Today we're talking about sorority babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. This is a 1988 movie. It was produced by Charles Band. It is not an Empire Pictures production like I always kind of thought it was. This is Urban Classics Productions, which I guess was a temporary side project he came up with in between his time at Empire and the launch of Full Moon. Probably for some kind of tax break or something, knowing that guy. He's a madman. It stars Linnea Quigley, Brinke Stevens, and Michelle Bauer. This is the first movie that all three of them are in. It also has Hal Havens from Night of the Demons. He was Stooge, and George Buck Flower has a small part in this movie. It was directed by Dave Decoteau, who you might know, and it is the perfect example of the kind of stuff that you would find on USA Up All Night back in the day. So the basic setup here is you've got three guys. They're stereotypical 80s college nerds. They're chilling in their dorm room, drinking beers, watching horror movies, and looking at nudie magazines. So, very relatable. And they decide that they're going to go to the local sorority house and creep around and peek in the windows and try to get an eyeful. Which brings us to the sorority babes. I'm just going to do a big character dump right now, just so it's clear. We've got Calvin, who is our leading man. Hal Havens, who I'm just going to call Stooge. He's the fat one. The guy with glasses, I'm just going to call him Glasses. We've got Brinke and Michelle, who are the two sorority initiates. And the three mean girls, the leader being Babs, one of them being named Rhonda, and the third one, who I never catch her name, so I'm just going to call her the bride, which will become clear later on why. And so they get to this sorority house, they're peeking in the window, and the girls are in the middle of an initiation, which involves being dressed in lingerie, being spanked with paddles, and hosed down with whipped cream, which naturally leads to a group shower scene. And these three guys are peeking in the bathroom door and get busted by Babs. And so, in order to keep from turning them in, she decides what she wants them to do is take the two initiates to the local mall and steal a bowling trophy from the bowling alley. But what they don't tell them is their secret plan, which is to follow in behind them and scare them. And this brings up two questions with me. First off, this bowling alley was in a mall. Was that a thing in the 80s? I mean, I'm a 90s kid. Granted, from a small town, but I do not remember bowling alleys being a common thing in malls. Maybe it was in bigger cities, I don't know. And the second question, all she says is that she intends to scare the hell out of them or something like that. So what's her actual plan? Is she just going to wait for them to be turning a corner and jump out and scare them or something? I don't know. It seems like a pretty lame evil plot, but that's what we're going with. So they get to the mall, they break in, no problem, it's unlocked. The mean girls follow in behind them and go to the surveillance camera room, and this is where the group runs into Spider, who is Linnea Quigley. I love Linnea Quigley for obvious reasons. My favorite role of hers is Trash from Return of the Living Dead, but this is easily my second favorite role ever from her. She's cute as a button, for one, and she always kind of does this, but in this movie it really sticks out. Her dialogue delivery in this movie is perfect. Every line she delivers is like she just dropped the sickest burn you've ever heard, and it's hilarious. So anyway, she's in there robbing the joint. They meet up. There's immediate chemistry between her and Calvin. This kid, he drank a beer earlier, so I think we're supposed to assume it's liquid courage, but he just does everything right. He just walks up all casually and is like, "Hey girl," and she's eating it up. So she kind of joins the group. They finally get to the trophy room, and they're met with a wall of trophies. Almost all of them are about this big and could fit in your pocket. And which one do they grab? Of course, the biggest one that's like 20 pounds. Stooge grabs it and immediately drops it. And this is where we're introduced to Uncle Impy, the animatronic demon. And so it's really easy to make fun of this because it does kind of look a little shitty. But I actually love this little rubber monster. I love little rubber monsters in movies anyway, but this one is actually a pretty cool one. It looks pretty makeshift, but it's actually got an animatronic face. The eyebrows move, the lips move, and they don't just flap, they like curl up and down, and it's a really expressive monster, and it's pretty good stuff. But he is a wisecracking demon. He's kind of a precursor to Leprechaun, and he offers them a wish apiece for letting them go. And so you kind of think the obvious route would be the Wishmaster thing, where he grants a wish and it turns on you and kills you. Calvin actually points this out, and the only one that seems to agree is Spider. They're the only ones in this movie with half a brain. The rest of the group is just chomping at the bit to get their wish. But what this movie actually does is a little cooler, and it actually sticks to its lore better than most movies nowadays can. So what Impy can do is grant a wish to each person that lets him go, and he only has enough magic to grant each of those wishes, and they turn bad, but not in the way that they kill you. They don't last long, or they're fake. So Stooge wishes for a pile of gold, and it turns out to be a block of wood painted like gold. Brinke Stevens asks to be a prom queen, and initially she appears in a dress, but after a minute the dress becomes tattered. And Glasses wishes for Michelle Bauer to want to get down with him, and so she kind of drags him off to the back into a locker room. And so Calvin and Spider refuse to make a wish, and Michelle didn't get her wish because she got turned into a slave for Glasses. So the imp has enough magic to do 3 more things, and so he locks the place down with lightning magic, and he turns Rhonda and the other one into succubi, basically. Rhonda just kind of grows boils on her face and becomes a mutant zombie type of character, and the other one just turns into Bride of Frankenstein. Hair, dress, the whole thing. And so from here, this is kind of the second act, and it all just kind of turns into a big Benny Hill skit. The group's kind of split up, and Rhonda and the bride are chasing everybody around and picking them off one by one while the imp makes his witty observations and sarcastic comments, and Calvin and Spider go off to fall in love. Oh, and also I forgot to mention George Buckflower is in this as a janitor. When they first came in, he gets locked into a janitor's closet, and his performance is great, just like you'd expect. He's basically, for most of the movie, they'll cut back to him, and he's in there talking to himself, going crazy. And so we get some cool kills here, and some really hilarious moments. There's one point where Calvin and Spider just find a gun on a shelf in some kind of storage room. They empty the clip and just discard the gun. They don't look for ammo or hold on to it. They just throw it away. We get pretty quickly, Stooge gets offed. Rhonda rips his head off and uses it as a bowling ball. Glasses and Michelle are in the back. Glasses kind of realizes that he's not into this whole sex slave thing, so he wanders off to a kitchen. Rhonda jumps out and dunks his head in a deep fryer. And eventually, Brinke Stevens gets cornered by Rhonda and the bride and gets ripped in half. Now, none of these effects are gory. There's not a lot of practical effects to them. It's a lot of cutaway stuff. We do get Stooge's head rolling down a bowling alley, but we don't actually get to see it get ripped off. They do a cool little camera trick with Brinke where she's behind a pillar and she's laying here and somebody else's legs are laying here. So from your perspective, it looks like she's ripped apart. And I mean, it's all pretty entertaining and schlocky, but not a lot of practical effects. I think where they blew the budget here, aside from Impy, is 2 scenes. There's one where they flip a car and I'm pretty sure it explodes. It's pretty impressive. And then towards the end, there's a big fire stunt. And this fire stunt, I'm kind of concerned for the stuntman who did this because it looks out of control. I don't think I've ever seen a burn stunt that looked like it was burning so hot. So hopefully that guy's okay. Who knows? But yeah, this eventually leads us to Spider and Calvin finding the janitor. And this is where we get a story dump. He knows all about it. And he tells them the backstory. Basically, a bowler started bowling 300s one day. And then people started dying. And eventually they captured it in this trophy. And that's the only way you can contain it, is to catch it in a metal container. And he also drops a nugget of information that is the only way to defeat magic is to use it against itself. So Calvin puts that in the bank for later. Eventually, I think it's Rhonda that gets offed and is replaced by Babs. I guess Impy has the power to transfer this magic to Babs once Rhonda's dead. Babs basically turns into a dominatrix with a really weird, stupid accent. Almost like a Jersey accent, I guess. And so Spider and Calvin get some gasoline, get some bottles, make Molotov cocktails, and they burn Babs after she offs Michelle. And this is where we get the fire stunt. Spider knocks the bride's head off, and her head flies and hits the door, which disables the magic. And that's where Calvin realizes, oh, that's what he meant by use the magic against itself. Not a huge payoff, but I mean, whatever. What are you going to do? It's a low-budget horror comedy from the 80s. So, good enough, I guess. But yeah, so he runs out to get a car. He flips it. Meanwhile, Spider has found an old tobacco tin. She sneaks up behind the imp, catches him in it. They finally both get out of the mall. And they ride off into the sunset to go to Spider's house and presumably get it on and live the rest of their lives happily married. But, they left the tin behind on the road. So, sequel bait. He's still out there somewhere, just waiting to be unleashed. Now, there is actually, I think, maybe a sequel to this. I think it's not out yet, but or maybe it got canceled. It's unclear. The poster's out there. I can't find it on Full Moon's channel or anything. It has an official release date of 2019 everywhere I've looked, but I can't find it. I'm sure it's not great anyway. But there is actually another movie that I would consider a spiritual sequel to this. It's the second of the two movies that all three of these girls are in together. And it's very connected to this movie, which I will be covering eventually, probably sooner than later, because I love that movie too. But yeah, this movie is a really fun time. It's the kind of movie that only could have been made in the late 80s, early 90s. It's cheesy and stupid, and it's got a little rubber monster, which always wins me over. It's got a lot of history behind it. I mean, it's Charles Band, David Decoteau, the three big B-movie scream queens of the 80s. For what it is, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. It's one of the better of these kind of low-budget, sleazy USA Up All Night movies. And I definitely recommend checking it out. But yeah, I guess that's about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. And until next time.